Step right up. Watch your step. Remain standing and face the front.
You solemnly swear the evidence given before the jury in the case now against you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. You take this seat. Ooh.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Would you please state your name and spell your last name? Sure, sir.
Matthew McCabe, McCabe.
And where do you live, sir?
Canton, Massachusetts.
And how long have you lived in Canton?
I'll be 20 years this coming June.
And during the time that you have lived in Canton, have you lived at the same place or have you lived at different places?
Different places.
So where do you live currently? How long have you lived there?
Currently, I will be 10 years this June.
And where did you live prior to that?
Prior to that, you want the physical address?
Yes.
15 Sutcliffe Ave. I was there for 10 years as well.
And with respect to both locations, who, if anyone, do you live with?
I live with my wife and my 4 daughters.
And what is your wife's name?
Jennifer,
And how long have you and Jennifer McCabe met?
22, so 23 years in August.
And you have 4 daughters, is that right?
That's correct.
And how old are you?
I'm 49.
I'm sorry.
Oh, my daughters?
That's okay. Your daughters, how old are your daughters?
20, 18, 16, and 15.
And your oldest daughter is Allie McCabe, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And do you work, sir?
Yes, I do.
What do you do for work?
I work for a information technology solutions firm.
And how long have you been doing that?
2009. So I think I'm coming on 15 years.
And does your wife work?
No.
What does your wife do?
Stay at home, raises the kids. Homemaker.
If I could turn your attention to January 28th and to January 29th of 2022. Do you recall those days?
Yes, I do.
Recall what days of the week?
Friday into Saturday.
And did you work that day on the Friday?
Yes, I did.
And at that point, do you recall, were you working in an office or remotely?
I don't recall if that specific day I was in the office. Sometimes I'd go in, sometimes I'd work from home. So I don't recall if I actually was physically in the office. Sometimes I'll go in for a few hours. So I don't recall exactly if I was home or in the office that day.
So regardless, at some point you sort of wrap up work for the day, and where did you go?
Yes, finished up work and met some friends at a restaurant in Canton before my daughter's basketball game.
And so on that evening, your daughter had a basketball game, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And who did she play for at that time?
She played for Canton High School.
Is that the varsity game?
Yes.
And which of your daughters, as far as age is concerned, which of your daughters was playing basketball for Canton High School at that time?
That would be my second oldest, who's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
my second oldest.
And so you, after work, had met some other people at an establishment in Canton, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Where did you go?
The establishment was called the Canton Junction Pub or Canton Junction. I don't know the full name, but just went by the Junction.
And who, if anyone, did you meet there, just in general?
Handful of folks that played whose daughters played basketball on the same team with my daughter.
So just sort of a group of parents who had kids on the basketball team?
Yes, that's correct.
And was your wife Jennifer there with you at that time as well?
Yes, that's correct.
And about how long were you at the Junction?
Game 6:30, give or take hour and a half.
And girls varsity basketball, was there sort of like a typical time that game would start or game would be scheduled for?
Yes,
And what time was that? Generally?
typically 6 or 6:30 would be the normal time. I don't remember if it was a 6:30 start that night or actually I think it was a 6:30 start, but typically 6 or 6:30.
So sometime around 6 or 6:30, you make your way over to the high school. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in that, I mean, was this a home game, a road game, if you recall?
That evening it was a home game.
Do you recall anything about the game as far as who they were playing or if they won or anything like that?
Yes, it was. They were playing the town of Foxborough High School, and they did not win. They went into overtime and lost.
Now, with respect to your wife, Jennifer, as the kids were growing up, what if anything, what if any relationship did she have as far as with respect to the kids in basketball?
It's grown as like the youth years. Jennifer was a basketball coach and coached throughout the years. Coached a couple of my daughters.
So she coached, and with respect to the daughter that was playing at the high school game that night, was that one of the daughters that she had coached?
Yes, that's correct.
Fair to assume she had also coached several of the girls that were on the varsity basketball team with your daughter, correct?
Yes, a few of them. Yes.
Now, when you get to Canton High School to the basketball game, is there sort of a typical area where you would sit or people you would congregate with while you're watching the game?
Yes, we sit up in the bleachers. Usually, the parents from the home side would tend to sit in the same area.
So you sit there, you watch the game. Game is over, and then what is sort of the plan from there, or where do you go?
After the game, I drove my younger two daughters back home.
So your whole family was there for the game, is that correct?
My wife and my two younger daughters. My older daughter was there. She wasn't with us, but she was there as well.
She was a student at Canton High School at that time as well.
Yes, she was.
So she's sitting with the other students, is that correct?
Yes, I'm assuming. I don't recall where she sat, but most likely with the other students.
So you drove your two daughters home, and then where did you go from there?
After dropping my daughters off, my wife and I proceeded to the waterfall in Canton Center.
And do you recall what you were just in one vehicle when you left the house and went to the junction and went to the high school game, back to the house and to the waterfall? Was it the same vehicle?
Yes, we were in the same vehicle.
And do you recall what kind of vehicle it was or whose vehicle it was?
It was the family vehicle. It was my wife's vehicle. I don't know, what was it? I don't know if it was a Suburban or a Yukon. I forget what brand it was.
Some kind of SUV? Is it?
Yes, a large SUV.
And why did you go to the waterfall?
We went to the waterfall. My wife informed me that her sister was at the waterfall with her niece and a few other people, and we went to go meet them. My understanding, it was my nephew's birthday, either that day or the day after, and they were going to meet out at the waterfall for his birthday.
And just to be clear, as far as who we're talking about, your wife's sister, what's her name?
Nicole Albert.
And is Nicole married?
Yes, she is.
And what's her husband's name?
Brian Albert.
And the niece that you're talking about that was out there with your sister-in-law, what's her name?
Her name is Caitlin Albert.
And the nephew of yours whose birthday it was or was going to be, what's his name?
His name is Brian as well.
So essentially Brian Albert Jr., even if he's not.
Yes, I believe he's a junior, yes.
Now, with regard to the basketball parents and the other people that you had been with at the junction and then at the game, what, if any, communication was there amongst sort of the basketball parents that evening or any other?
So we had a group text with the basketball parents, a handful of us, where after some of the games, we would meet up afterwards. This evening, I know I sent a text out saying where we were going because we were obviously meeting her sister. And a few other parents responded where they were going. We kind of split up, except for one couple decided to meet us at the waterfall out of that group text.
And the couple that decided to meet you at the waterfall, who would?
That would be Nick and Karina Kolakisis.
Yeah. When you arrive at the waterfall, you and your wife, do you recall where it was that you parked in relation to the waterfall?
Yes, if you're looking at the front door of the waterfall, we were parked in the parking lot down the left.
And the waterfall sort of shares its parking lot or its establishment with a condo complex. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you parked somewhere in that parking lot?
Correct. I parked in the parking lot, yes.
And when you came into the waterfall, who, if anyone, did you see there, and then where did you go?
When we walked into the waterfall, we identified where Jen's sister and their party was sitting.
And where were they sitting in relation to the waterfall?
When you walk in the front door, I believe there's 3 long tables that are set up. They were in the third long table closest to the bar. Across from, there was also a band. They were right across from a little band.
There was a live band there as well?
Yes, there was.
Now, prior to you and your wife entering into the waterfall, can you recall what, if anything, you did or who, if anyone, you were talking to in the parking lot?
Yes. On the car ride from my house to the waterfall, and while I was in the parking lot, I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone.
And do you recall just generally what the conversation was about?
Yes, I do.
Or what was it?
It was about my daughter My oldest daughter, Allie, who we mentioned, it was about her hockey team and her hockey coach. I was talking to one of the hockey coaches.
And when you were talking to this person, this is inside the car, is that correct?
That is correct.
And despite it being sort of White's car, was your phone hooked up to the speakers? Did you have Bluetooth or anything like that?
I don't know if I connected mine to the Bluetooth or not. I don't recall if I was connected to the Bluetooth or not. I know my phone connects, so possibly. I don't know for sure if it was 100% connected that evening.
Now, with respect to it being your wife's car, is there, when both of you are in the car, is there sort of a default as to which of your phones would connect to the Bluetooth, yours versus hers?
If look at it that way, it would be my wife's because it was her car.
So the car would probably recognize her device over your device, correct?
That is correct.
Now,
actually, I started the call definitely on my phone because my kids were, I was on the call for a while. So I think I had the kids still in the car when I was dropping them off. So I wouldn't have them listening to the call. So I must have been on, again, I don't remember, but I must have been listening on my, holding it in my hand.
and when you come into the waterfall to your call, by what time happens?
9 o'clock, give or take a couple minutes.
Again, you come over to a table closest to the bar, and who's in the group when you get there?
When we arrived, it was Nicole, Caitlin, Caitlin's boyfriend, Tristan, Chris Albert, and Julie Albert. We were also joined by Nick Kolakisas, who I mentioned. I just don't remember if Nick was already in or if Nick walked in right after me, but Nick and I, we got there similar times. I just don't know if he was already sitting in the bar or standing there when I walked in, or if he came in right after. Oh, and Jen, obviously.
And to be clear, people that were with you at this high top table in this sort of group, either them that you're talking about or throughout the course of the evening, these were people that were either sort of family or friends of yours or your wife's?
Oh, yes, that's correct. Yeah, family and friends, correct.
And so whether or not you and Mr. Kolakisas came in at the same time or slightly staggered, at some point he came in as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And with respect, obviously you were out and you were at a bar, correct?
Yes.
And from what you recall, you were drinking and most, if not all, the other people were drinking as well?
Yes, everybody at the table, to my recollection, was drinking.
And do you recall specifically what you were drinking on that night?
I do.
And what were you drinking?
I was drinking vodka with water and a splash of Crystal Light.
And is that something that you would normally drink?
No.
And why were you drinking that on that?
I was in a diet competition with other people in the town, so I was trying to stay away from any beer, which would be what I typically would drink.
And as far as your observations of the other people there throughout the course of the night, did you note anyone in your group, either at that time or subsequent in the night, to be sort of overly intoxicated or drunk or anything like that?
No.
And as far as the other people in your group, as far as drinking was concerned, at that time or any time later in the night, was their drinking sort of commensurate with the amount that you were drinking?
I wasn't paying attention to see who was drinking, how much they were drinking. I don't even know how many I had. Maybe at least 3, maybe 5. I don't know for sure. But give or take something there. But again, I wasn't paying attention to see if anybody was drinking faster than somebody else or et cetera.
And in that sense, sort of how long were you at the waterfall then?
Got there at 9 and left a little after 12, so a little over 3 hours.
So roughly 9 o'clock to about midnight or so, correct?
Yes, I recall leaving a little after midnight, correct.
Now, the initial group that you walked over to around the time that you got there, did that group expand or contract? Did people come or leave? Or can you explain sort of the order of that over the course of the evening?
Yes. Shortly after we settled in, Nick's wife showed up. Could have been 15, 20 minutes. I don't remember the exact time, but Nick's wife, Karina, came. And give or take 45 minutes, an hour after that, Brian Albert Sr. and Brian Higgins showed up. And around 11-ish, give or take, I don't know the exact time, Karen Reed and John O'Keefe showed up as well.
Let me ask you a little bit about some of those other but let me ask first about, as far as Caitlin's boyfriend, Mr. Morris, how long was he there then?
I don't recall how long he was there. I do know he left He had mentioned something about working that evening. There was obviously a snowstorm coming in that evening, and he had mentioned that he was going to go home for a little bit before he had to go out and, I don't know if he was plowing or shoveling or doing something, but he was going to be going out that evening to plow, I believe.
And Christopher Albert and Brian Albert, they're brothers, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And Christopher Albert's wife is Julie Albert, is that correct?
Yes.
And she is also friends with your wife, Jennifer McCabe, correct?
Yes.
And been so for years, as far as you know?
As far as I know, yes, they've been friends for years.
Now, you mentioned someone by the name of Brian Higgins. Did you know Brian Higgins prior to that evening?
Yes.
And how did you know him?
I had met Brian a few times, social settings. I recall meeting him at the Junction one evening. I believe I met him at a graduation party. I don't know how many times I met Brian, but I met him maybe 3, 4 times. I don't know exactly how many. So I knew who he was.
You knew who he was as far as he was friend or friendly with your brother-in-law, Brian Albert, correct?
Yes.
And that's how you knew him, was through Brian Albert?
Yes.
And do you know where Brian Albert Sr. and Brian Higgins had been prior to them coming to Waterfall?
Yes, I was informed that they were in New York, coming back from New York from a funeral of a New York police officer.
And both of them, as far as you knew, Brian Albert Sr. and Brian Higgins, they were in law enforcement, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that at some point around 11 or so, John O'Keefe and Karen Reed came into the Waterfall, correct?
Yes.
And just to be clear, when you speak of Karen Reed, that's someone that you had met prior to this evening as well?
Yes, that's correct.
And clarity purposes for the record, do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Could you just describe as to where she's seated or an article of clothing?
She is seated at the table with her attorneys. You want me to describe her clothing?
If you could.
Black, I don't know, sweater, I'm not sure, dress.
Just as a record of reflected education.
Yes.
Now, with regard to Mr. O'Keefe first, how was it that you knew Mr. O'Keefe?
I've met John O'Keefe when he started to be the caretaker for his niece and nephew after their parents had passed.
And specifically, you're referring to Patrick and Kaylee Furbush, is that correct?
That is correct.
So their mother and father tragically passed away, and Mr. O'Keefe then became their guardian, correct?
That is correct.
And when you met Mr. O'Keefe, is that when you were living at the house on Sutcliffe?
Yes.
And where was that house in relation to where Mr. O'Keefe initially lived with his niece and nephew?
A couple hundred yards. 2 different streets. It's a neighborhood with multiple streets. My house was on Sutcliffe. Drive down Sutcliffe, maybe pass 1, 2, 3, 4 houses. Took a right, and that was John. That was the street that the kids lived on. Maybe 4 houses up on the right.
And with reference to, you mentioned that you had 4 daughters, is that correct?
Yes.
And were any of your daughters around the same age as John's niece, Kaylee?
Yes, my 3rd daughter is the same age, same grade as Kaylee.
And about this time that John had moved in this house close to the house you were living on Sutcliffe, about how old was your daughter and his niece, Kaylee?
Ooh, I believe it was kindergarten. How old would you be in kindergarten? 7? I don't know.
I think kindergarten suffices. So
Okay.
fair to say they were very young, correct?
Yes.
And with reference to the kids, what, if any, beyond sort of being neighbors, what, if any, relationship did either you or your wife have with regard to Mr. O'Keefe and specifically his niece and nephew?
I'm sorry. There's a door. I was trying to. No, the door was shaking, so I couldn't hear the end of it.
So around that time that Mr. O'Keefe moved in with his niece and nephew and took over guardianship of them,
Yes.
what, if any, relationship beyond being neighbors did yourself and or your wife have with respect to Mr. O'Keefe and the kids?
Oh, yeah. We had a good relationship, especially my wife. She was having the kids the same age, Kaylee, and my daughter. She was very involved with helping him out, whether it was rides to various events. Throughout those years, I'd also coached Kaylee myself a couple times in soccer, and my wife also coached her in basketball. So play dates, things of that nature. Various times we'd go out with John, where he would meet up somewhere where we were. So a friendly relationship where, John was, in essence, acting as a mother and a father, and so you do a lot of communicating through my wife in regards to needing help and things of that nature.
And in particular, his niece Kaylee and your daughter, who was around the same age, were they friends?
Yes, they were friends.
And about how close were they, particularly around that younger age?
They were very close in the young age. Kaylee would spend a lot of time at our house, spend a lot of time sleeping over. So they were very close.
And Kaylee in particular, was she, how close was she with your wife, Jennifer?
Kaylee was close with Jen. Kaylee was mature, well beyond the other girls in regards to just she was bright and she was very articulate, so she could have conversations with the adults much better than the other kids. Having 4 girls, she was a bright kid.
Now, at some point, Mr. O'Keefe and the kids moved from that house, and you also moved from the house on Sutton, correct?
That is correct.
And do you recall the order of that? Was it you to move first, or they to move first?
I'm pretty sure I moved first. Yes.
And about how far away from the house on Sutcliffe was your new house?
It's right up the street, driving in a car, 2 minutes. I don't know, mile and a half. I'm not sure the exact distance, but not far away.
And where did John and the kids move?
They moved a little further away from, they're probably a couple miles away, 2.5, 3 miles. I don't know the exact distance. Not far. That side of town, everything's fairly close.
And specifically, they moved to a house on Meadows Avenue, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And the nature of your relationship, you and your wife's relationship with John and the kids and your daughter and Kaylee, did that sort of continue throughout after each of you moved from the original neighborhood?
Yes.
Now, with respect to the defendant, Ms. Reed, when was it that you first met her?
It's COVID 2020. We met her summertime of, I think it was the COVID year. I think it was 2020 summer.
Can you recall the circumstances of that or how you came to meet her at that time?
Yes, I do.
Could you explain to the jury what were the circumstances? Where did you meet her?
John had reached out to my wife, Jen. It was on a Saturday. I don't know if they connected that Saturday or the Friday, but they connected. John asked if he could come by the house with the kids. We have a pool, so he wanted to come by with the kids swimming and wanted to introduce Karen to us. Specifically wanted to introduce Karen to my wife, Jen.
You know why that was?
Yes, because they were dating, and he informed my wife I recall, but definitely on the edge of the long table.
It's fair to say the Cole Keithises didn't really know anybody at the table besides yourself and your wife.
Fair to say, they obviously knew who John was. They have a daughter as well, the same age as Kaylee. I don't know if they hung out with them, but fair to say that obviously it was my family and was there, Jen's family. So yes, I'd say in general, correct. You got water.
Now, sir, if I could ask, as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned, do you recall anything about what he was wearing that night?
I recall it, a baseball cap, and he tends to brim it over a little bit, and shirt and jeans. I don't know exactly what he was wearing.
Do you recall seeing him at any point in time with any kind of winter coat or heavy coat or anything like that?
Not that I recall. If he had one on, he had one on. I don't recall it.
And as far as his person, his features, what you could see, what, if any, injuries did you observe on him at that time?
I did not see any injuries.
And do you recall what John was drinking that night?
I believe he was drinking Bud Light beer.
Is that pretty typical for him?
Majority of times I saw John, yes, he was drinking Bud Light. I do recall when he came to my house for that first meet, he was drinking Bud Light Limes, which I thought was interesting, but it was at a pool. And maybe it was a summer drink for him. I'm not sure.
Fair enough.
I think I gave him a hard time.
Now, with reference to Miss Reed that night, what, if anything, did you observe her to be drinking or how?
She was drinking a clear liquid. I just assumed it was a vodka soda or vodka something.
And as far as the absent the Crystal Light, which I'll leave that alone for now, but absent the Crystal Light, was it similar to the drink that you were having that night?
Yes, could have been vodka water. Exactly, I don't know.
Now, do you know where the two of them, being Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant, do you know where they had come from prior to coming into the waterfall?
John had said they were came over from across the street from CF McCarthy's.
Now, let me ask you, as far as you were going to the waterfall, or your understanding was that it was your nephew, Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday, correct?
Yes.
And was he at the waterfall any time that you were there?
No.
And at some point, did you learn where he was?
Yes, I learned he was still home.
And was there any conversation, or do you know why he was still home?
My understanding is I thought we were waiting for him. He never showed up. My understanding was he chose to stay home. I had a couple friends over the house.
Now, from the time that you were in, the waterfall, how would you describe sort of the mood or the demeanor of sort of the group at large?
Everybody was just having a good time, hanging out, socializing, talking. As I said, there was a live band playing for a little bit, and just a normal evening.
And as far as the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe are concerned, from what you could see or your observations, was there any sort of fighting or arguing or anything like that you observed between the two of them over the course of the evening at the waterfall?
No, I did not.
You mentioned that you had left the waterfall sometime after midnight. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And before we get to that, over the course of the evening at the waterfall, did you have occasion to have conversation with either Mr. O'Keefe or the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Would that be both?
Yes.
And starting with Mr. O'Keefe, what, if any, conversation, generally speaking, do you recall having with Mr. O'Keefe that evening?
I believe that night I think that night he was out because Kaylee, maybe they just got the acceptance from Kaylee. He was excited about her acceptance to school, Bishop Fian, a local high school.
And that was something that you were aware of that he had applied for to get into that school, correct?
Yes.
And with respect to Ms. Reed, what, if any, conversations do you recall in regard to her?
Normal conversation. She, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. She made a reference to myself asking how Jen and I do it. And I said, she was talking about with the 4 girls. How do we do it? How do you raise the 4 girls? You guys look happy. And I actually joked to her. I said, well, we're at a bar. Considering, it's obviously any marriage will tell you you have your ups and downs. But brief, conversational. nothing of any substance. Just good to see you.
Now, this time that you're talking about that you're leaving shortly after midnight, is that around the time that sort of the bar was winding down for the evening?
Yes.
The band that had been playing before, were they still playing? Or had they...
No, they had stopped earlier, before 12. I don't remember the exact time, but they definitely stopped earlier. There were some people there, but our table was definitely the last table to wrap it up. Well, some people left before me, but the band was packing up packing up all their equipment.
And so in that vein, if you recall, can you tell the jury sort of the order of people from your group and when they left and things of that?
Yes. So Brian, Albert, Brian Higgins, and Nicole were packed up, leaving before us. Then my wife, Karen, Karina, John and Chris, they started leaving before us. I think John was delayed, but they walked out, and Nick and I were the last two at the table. I recall us picking up some of the empty glasses and beer bottles, and because I said the bar was right behind us, so I recall picking up the glasses and some of the bottles and bring them to the bar, as well as a couple of the members of the band were sitting on the edge of the bar, and just some brief conversation with them. Good job, guys coming back, things of that nature. And then Nick and I walked out.
Now, over the course of the evening at the waterfall, while you were there, what, if any, conversation was had amongst the group in regard to any plans or where to next, or where people were going after the waterfall?
Yes. As mentioned, thought we were going to meet my nephew. He didn't come out. We found out he had a few friends at the house. When Brian and Nicole were leaving, they had mentioned that Brian was at the house with a couple friends, and we were welcome to come back and have a celebratory drink for his birthday. So he had extended an invite to the table. Like, hey, who's ever around wants to come back, you're welcome.
So that was sort of extended to the entirety of the group, is that correct?
That is correct.
And so what was your understanding, at least as far as your plan, you and your wife, Jennifer, when you were leaving the waterfall?
That we'd be stopping by Brian and Nicole's house.
And so prior to that discussion regarding stopping by your brother-in-law, Brian Albert's house, what, if any, discussion was there in regard to to his brother, Christopher Albert? Let me ask you this. What, if any, other discussion, other than going to your brother-in-law, Brian Albert's house, was there at the table in regard to places to go after?
Yes. There was discussion about going to D&E Pizza. That's a pizza sub shop that Chris Albert owns in Canton Center, which is 100 yards, whatever, across the street from the waterfall.
And can you describe sort of what was the substance of that discussion and who was involved in that discussion?
Yes, the discussion is we've done that in the past. Where we've wrapped up for the night, we've gone over there and turned the ovens on and have made some pizza. In this particular instance, Karen had asked if we could do that. She wanted to go to D&E. She wanted to make pizza. Chris and I were adamant that we were not going to D&E because we were on this diet and we were not going to go subject ourselves to late night pizza. So we said no, we're not going to D&E. Though we had conversations. Karen wanted to go, but we kept saying no, we're not going to go.
When you say you kept saying, was that something that the defendant raised once or more than once?
More than once.
Now, when you leave, you and Mr. Kolokitis, and you walk out of the waterfall, you go over to your car in the parking lot, is that right?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
And again, by your car, I mean your wife Jennifer's car, is that right?
Yes.
And where was she in relation to the car when you get there?
She was already in the car.
So let me ask you, as far as where was she seated within the car?
Oh, sorry. She was in the driver's seat.
So you get in the front passenger side, is that right?
That's correct.
And when you get into the car, what, if any, communication did you become aware of between your wife and Mr. O'Keefe?
When I got into the vehicle, my wife received a text from John, and it said, "Where to?" He was looking for the address. I told my wife we were starting to drive out of the parking lot. I told her just call him instead of texting him back.
So rather than text while she's driving, you advise her just call him back.
Correct.
And did she call him?
She did.
And with respect to that Bluetooth that we were discussing earlier within the car, this call from your wife Jennifer to John O'Keefe, was that using the Bluetooth technology?
I'm assuming it was. I don't recall, but I knew he was on the phone asking what the address was.
Let me ask you this. Could you hear both sides of the conversation?
I could hear him, yes.
So you heard your wife talking and you heard John talking, correct?
Yes.
And as far as that communication with reference to where to or where to go or the address, describe to the jury sort of what that conversation consisted of.
Conversation was the address, 34 Fairview. And I actually was definitely mumbling stuff from my seat saying, come out, take a right, take a left on Sherman and 34 Fairview. And that was that initial call, was just giving him the address and telling him to Sherman's the easiest way.
And so when you say that initial call, was there a subsequent call while you were still en route to 34 Fairview?
Yes, it was a call a few minutes later. Somehow, I don't know why, but somehow they didn't know where the house was. I recall, again, my assumption would be they'd come from Sherman, from Chapman Street. My wife referenced a friend of Kaylee's who lives off of Fairview. And we said, well, you know where this child lives? He said, yes. Okay. Drive past her street and the house will come up on the left.
And the friend of Kaylee's, what was her name?
Her name is Bella.
So someone, you recall whether it was you or your wife that made reference to Bella's house?
I think we both did. I think I said it, and then I think my wife repeated it.
And that was someone, the Bella child was someone who was friends with both your daughter and with Kaylee, is that correct?
Yes.
Around the same age?
Exact. Same age, same grade.
Now, when you were talking on this second conversation, again, you could hear both sides of the conversation, is that right?
That's correct.
And as far as Mr. O'Keefe's side of the conversation, what, if anything, did he say as far as who was coming or who he was with at the time?
He didn't make any reference to, you're asking if he made reference of anybody else? Is that what you're asking?
What I'm asking is when he was saying as far as looking for the house, was he?
Oh, we're on our way. Okay, great. We're on our way.
And from, obviously, the earlier interaction that you had with him and him saying we, who did you infer that we be?
Karen.
And at any point in time during the conversation that you had where you were hearing both sides, did you hear Ms. Reed in the background at any point?
I do not recall hearing Ms. Reed, no.
Now, about how far a drive is it, or how long a drive is it, roughly from the waterfall to 34th Fairview?
The way I would go, 4 minutes, give or take, 5 minutes. There's multiple ways, but depends on how you go, I guess.
And the way that you go, as far as what you're talking about, is that your recollection of how or where your wife drove that night?
Yes.
Now, as far as when you arrive at the house, where did your wife park the vehicle in relation to the house? She
pulled the vehicle into the driveway.
And you're obviously familiar with the address or the residence at 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes, I am.
Been there several times before this evening.
Yes, I have.
And essentially, there's two garage doors on the house. There's one on the left, one on the right. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall whether or not your wife parked on the left side of the driveway or the right side of the driveway?
I believe it was the left, but the driveway is fairly wide. It kind of widens out, not just the two doors. So I don't know if she was right on the left where the walkway is, or if she was one kind of more in the middle, because that driveway you could pull up even on the right of her, but somewhere, I don't know exactly, but she pulled into the driveway.
So she pulls in the driveway, she parks, you guys go in the house, correct?
Yes.
When you get inside the house, who, if anyone, do you observe there?
When we entered the house, we observed Caitlin, Brian Jr. Brian had two friends there, Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson, Brian Higgins, and Brian Albert Sr.
And where?
Did I say Nicole? Nicole. I don't know if I said Nicole.
And where in the house were they situated?
When I recall, everybody was congregated when you walk in the front door, to your right, there's a table, and then there's an open floor where it goes right to the kitchen and the room with the table. They just flow into each other. So people are surrounding either the island in the kitchen and or the table area.
And from your recollection, is that essentially where people mainly congregated throughout the course of the night that you were there?
Yes.
And about how long a period of time were you there at 34 Fairview that night?
Got there, I'd say a little over an hour. No, got there about 12:20-ish. Left 1:40, 1:45. I don't know the exact time, 1:40, 1:45-ish. So.
You got there somewhere closer to 12:30 and you left somewhere closer to about 1:45, 2 a.m. Is that correct?
Got there about 12:20, give or take, and then, left about 1:40, 1:45. I don't know the specific time, but somewhere around there.
And similar to the question I asked you about the waterfall, as far as the how would you describe sort of the mood or the demeanor of the group in the house when you got there?
Oh, everybody was hanging out. I know Julie was excited. We just showed up. Good to see us. Brian, excited that we came by. Normal.
So fair to say no tension, no arguments, nothing like that while you were at the house?
No.
And do you recall sort of what you were doing while you were at the house, or what the group was doing?
It kind of hanging out, talking, sitting around the table, engaging. Music was on. Just having a good time, just hanging out, talking, enjoying each other's company. I do recall my wife put on a foolish video that she wanted to show the kids at the table. But other than that, just socially hanging out with each other.
The foolish video that you're talking about, do you recall what that was?
Yes.
And can you describe that to the jury?
It was a video for the song It's Raining Men.
And do you recall, generally speaking, what was in the video? Why it was a foolish video as you described?
Well, it's a in the family. It's one of Jen's sisters had put on a show before with an umbrella. So at some point, my wife came across this video, and it was people just dancing around. So she was showing my niece and my nephew and the friends the video so they could see. We're kind of picking on my sister-in-law.
And you have another nephew by the name of. I'm sorry. Are you familiar? You mentioned that earlier at the waterfall there was Christopher and Julie Albert. Is that right?
Yes.
Familiar with them? Your wife is friends with Julie, correct?
Yes.
And you know their children as well. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
And specifically, you know their middle child, Colin.
Yes.
And at any point in time in the evening when you were there at 34 Fairview Road, was Colin Albert there at any point?
No, he was not.
You didn't see him that night at all?
Never saw him.
And obviously, you know your oldest daughter, Allie, correct?
Yes, I do.
And at any point in time when you were at 34 Fairview, did you see her or vehicle or anything? Did you have any knowledge that your daughter, Allie, was there at the time that you were there?
No, she was not.
She wasn't there. You didn't see her there. You didn't know if she had been there before you or anything like that.
Correct. Correct.
Now, turning back into the house, as far as the group that you were with, was there any point in time that anyone from that group left that sort of general area of the dining room and the kitchen that you recall?
We were in that room. There's a room right next to the kitchen with the doorway that you can walk through. I was seated at the table, but you could walk through the doorway. You know, I know Julie Nagel went into that room because she was looking out the door. And other people could have walked in and out of that room. It's right there, right next to us.
At any point in time over the course of that evening, did you see anybody sort of go upstairs or downstairs to the basement or anywhere else but that general area of those three rooms in the home?
I did not see anybody.
Now, at some point, you mentioned that Julie Nagel was looking outside for something. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
How long was that in reference to after you arrived and then when that happened?
Again, I don't know the exact time. I'm going to say could have been 3 minutes, could have been 5 minutes, somewhere in that vicinity. We arrived, said hello, good to see everybody. And shortly after, she had mentioned that her brother was there to pick her up.
Now, as far as the Levinson and Miss Nagel, they were friends of your nephew, Brian Albert Jr., is that right?
That's correct.
And did you know them at all at that time, when you arrived there on the 28th?
Miss Levinson, I did not know. First time I met her. I definitely had met Julie before. She had, Brian and her hang out. So I definitely met her. I think she's been, I don't know if it was previous to this or after this, but Julie has, helped my nephew Brian, when we go on vacation. We have a dog, and Brian would usually be the go-to to, let the dog out, et cetera. And I know Julie has helped him. I just don't know if that was previous to that or after. But I definitely met Julie before, yes.
So we met her before, but essentially met her as a friend of your nephew's, correct?
Yes.
Not someone that you knew particularly well, is that fair to say?
Correct. Didn't know her well.
So after about 3 to 5 minutes or so after you arrived, you observed Miss Nagel looking outside, correct?
Yes, she was going out the door, correct.
And do you know why she was going out the door?
She said her brother was there to pick her up, but she didn't want to leave.
And at any point in time, did either yourself or your wife extend an offer to either Miss Nagel or Miss Levinson or both in regard to getting home?
Yes. My wife informed them that if they wanted to stay because we just got there, we would be more than willing to drive them home.
And fair to say at this point in time, you didn't even know where Miss Levinson or Miss Nagel lived, is that correct?
No idea.
You didn't really know what you signed up for as far as driving them home, is that correct?
Well, Canton's not that big of a town, so I wasn't too scared. But yeah, I didn't know exactly where they live. I knew they were from Canton.
Now, at some point when Ms. Nagel goes outside, what, if anything, drew your attention to the outside of the house?
When she went outside, or when she was opening the door, her or somebody referenced that there was another vehicle out front.
And so upon hearing that, where did you go?
Upon hearing that, we just assumed that was obviously John and Karen. So I don't recall if I looked out the window first or looked out the door first, but I looked out to see the other vehicle out in front of the house.
And just to be clear, when you say window and when you say door, like which window and which door?
Well, I was sitting at the table, and right behind me is a window. Or if I stood up and took 5 steps, there's the front door of the house. So again,
In addition to sort of the regular front doors, there's like a storm door or something that you would have been able to see through. Is that?
that would be the front door. I would call the storm door. That yes, I could see out the front. There's another door. If you're looking at the house, it's your front door, windows, and then there's another door. Julie looked out or went out through that door. I either looked at that point, either looked out the window or walked over to the front door, which would be the opposite door.
Regardless if you looked out the window or you looked out the storm door at the front door, when you looked out, what if anything, did you see?
I noticed the big SUV parked in front of the house.
And do you know what color the SUV was?
At the time, I didn't. It was dark. I didn't know if it was a black SUV, a dark green, or dark blue, but it was a dark SUV.
And at the time, were you familiar with either or both of the vehicles of Mr. O'Keefe and or the defendant, Ms. Reed?
Yes, I knew Karen drove a dark SUV. I didn't know the make and model. I just knew she drove a dark SUV. I'd seen it at pickup and things of that nature.
And did you know what kind of vehicle that Mr. O'Keefe drove around that time?
I think he had a smaller SUV. I don't remember the make.
Do you remember what
He
color?
had you know what? I don't remember the color of his SUV. He had another car too that he drove around. I remember that. That's about it.
And when you're looking out from either the window or the door, where was the dark SUV in relation to the house?
If you came out that front door, pretty much right in front of the house, parked in front of the house.
Now, you mentioned that Ms. Nagel had left the house through the other door and gone outside. Is that right?
That's correct.
When you looked out, could you see Ms. Nagel or where she had gone?
No, there was another vehicle, again, coming out the front door. If you go to the left, there's a driveway. There was another vehicle over there. I don't know if it was on the street facing this way, if it was pulled in. I was just looked out the front door and noticed the car to be like, oh, that's John. That was my focus. I didn't look for Julie.
As far as the other vehicle, did you observe at least enough to know whether or not it was behind the dark SUV, in front of the dark SUV, or something else?
Yeah, it was to the left. It was equivalent to where the driveway was. And then after the end of the driveway, there was a Jeep. And after the Jeep was the SUV, the dark SUV.
And with respect to, just from your perspective, you're looking out, so the driveway would have been to your left, is that right?
Correct.
Are you familiar with any other sort of landmarks or anything else in the front yard area of your brother-in-law's house?
Yes. So you look out, the driveway's to the left. If you look to the right, there is an island of like maybe rhododendrons, something, bushes. There's a flagpole right there. There's a utility. I believe it's a green utility box. I'm assuming it's utility, kind of on the edge. There's a fire hydrant. All that stuff was to the right side of the looking out the front door.
Now, after you look out this initial time and you see this dark SUV sort of right in front of the door, was that the only time that you looked out, or did you look out on subsequent occasions?
Nope. I looked out again because it'd been a few minutes. Again, 2, 3, 4 minutes. I'm not sure how long, but it'd been a few minutes, and we thought it was weird they hadn't come into the house. Looked out and saw the SUV again.
And when you looked out for the second time, where was the SUV in relation to where it was the first time?
The SUV had moved up the road from the front of the house. It went from spot A to spot B. Now it was further up, more in sync of where the again the flagpole, the utility box, more in sync with that. It had moved up the road. Thought it was weird that they hadn't come in.
Now, as far as the times that you're looking out, did you happen to make any note of sort of, let me ask you this, taking it back to the waterfall just for a second. When you were driving, or your wife was driving from the waterfall to 34 Fairview, what, if anything, did you observe as far as what was the weather doing?
The snow had started to fall.
And at that initial time that you're going from the waterfall to Fairview Roads, was it sticking to the pavement or anything at that point?
I believe there was a dusting. It was definitely falling. I don't think it was on like the main roads, but definitely a dusting of snow was falling. Correct.
And from that time after you arrived at the house and shortly thereafter when you observed this dark SUV out in front of the house, had that changed at all as far as the accumulation or sticking to the pavement, roadway, grass, anything like that you saw?
Yes. At some point, at least on their road and their grass, you could see the snow had started to, it definitely was sticking on that road.
Now, you observe it initially in front of the door, then about 3 or 4 minutes later, you observe it further up towards the flagpole, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And each of these times, you're not just standing at the door or standing at the window, staring out the entire time, correct?
No, just looking out, being like, what the hell are they doing? And going back to my seat.
And at other than those 2 times that you've already testified about, was there any subsequent times after that?
Yes, I definitely looked out a third time out the door.
And the third time that you looked out the door, where was the dark SUV in relation to where it had been the second time?
It had now proceeded further up the road, past the flagpole, past the utility box, past the fire hydrant, more in line with between the yards. I believe there's bushes and trees that separate the Alberts residence to the next residence. So it was actually past the Alberts residence and a little further up. I'd say more on the edge of the property line of if you're looking out of the neighbors to their right, if I'm looking out of their house.
Now, this distance between the second time that you saw it and the third time that you saw it, do you have any idea about how much distance that was or how many feet?
Hey, I'd be guessing 30, 40 feet. I don't know. I have no idea. I'd have to measure it.
Now, with respect to the snow that had fallen on the ground, as far as the vehicle was concerned, it moves from one point to the second point to the third point. Do you observe any sort of tire marks or anything in the snow out on the road when you looked out?
Yes, I did.
And the tire marks that you observed, did they essentially lead up to the back tires of the dark SUV that you saw out there?
At some point, I looked out and noticed tire marks that would have started before the Jeep. So if the Jeep was here, it's just a weird, like a wave. It was a weird wave in the road. You could see the tire marks.
And was that before or after? So at some point, Ms. Nagel goes out to some other vehicle and then comes back inside the house, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You know about how long she was outside of the house for?
I'd be guessing a minute. I'm not sure.
Not terribly long time.
No, not at all.
And so the time that you observed this sort of abnormality in the tire marks that you see out there, was that before or after she had come back inside the house?
That would have been after.
So you don't know if that was from the dark SUV or whatever vehicle she had met. You have no idea.
Objection.
No, can you answer that? Well, the form of the question, it's sustained, right?
Do you know which vehicle left those abnormal tire marks you saw?
Based off of where the tire marks were, they came off the curb. My assumption was it was the SUV.
I withdraw.
Okay,
I heard the answer. I withdraw.
okay.
But you don't know, correct?
No, I didn't see the no.
And that was my next point. As far as when you saw the vehicle, as far as each of those 3 times, it was stationary each time you saw it, correct?
The first 2 times, definitely stationary. The third time looked stationary. If it was going a half mile per hour, I'm not sure, but it was further up the road. It looked to me it was stationary, but like I said, if for some reason it was moving, it could have been moving. But
now, each time that you saw the vehicle, was it in the same sort of position with respect to the house? By that, I mean, as far as was it on the Alberts, was it on the 34 Fairview side of the road or the other side, or where was the position with respect to the roadway?
Yes, same position, parked parallel to the Alberts house, heading forward as if you were going to leave Fairview to head up to Chapman Street, heading away from the house.
And so each time that you observed the vehicle, you were looking at sort of the passenger side of that vehicle, correct?
That is correct.
And at any point in time, either of these 3 occasions that you observed the vehicle, did you see anybody outside of it?
I did not.
Did you see any footprints around the vehicle or leading away from the vehicle or across the yard or anything like that?
I did not.
And were you able to see inside of the vehicle from where you were, either from the window or from the storm door or the front door?
I could not, or I did not see anything inside.
And further to that point, at any point in time that you observed this vehicle in front of the house, you see any sort of interior lights on inside the vehicle?
Not that I noticed.
Now, you saw it at point 1, point 2, point 3. Were there any other times that you looked outside?
I'm assuming I looked out because at some point the vehicle was gone. So I must have looked out one more time because there was no vehicle there anymore. And again, I don't know if I just peeked out the window and said, oh, they left. Again, we didn't know where they were.
And do you know whether or not there had been any attempt at communication by anyone in the house to Mr. O'Keefe at any point?
Yes.
And who was doing that?
My wife was trying to communicate with John, let him know that he's here.
I'm going to let that stand.
And at any point, do you know whether or not Mr. O'Keefe communicated back to Ms. McCabe while they were out front of the house?
Objection.
Do you know? Not how you know, but do you know?
Do I know if Mr. O'Keefe communicated back to Jen? Is that the question?
That's my question.
No.
No, she did not, or no, you don't know.
Oh, no, sorry. No, she did not. Sorry.
I'll strike that.
Now, Ms. McCabe, with regard to this, from the first time that you sort of get up and either look out the window or look out the door and see it in front of the front door, to the time that you look out and see it for the third time, or let me ask you this, from the time that you see it in front of the door to the time that you see that there's no vehicle there anymore, do you know how long a period of time that was?
I'd say at least 10 minutes, could be 12, 13, 14. I don't know the exact time, but it was out there for a little bit.
And so let me ask it this way. As far as from the first time to the second time, you testified it was about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, somewhere in there, correct?
Correct.
Were the timing in between the times that you looked out, were they relatively consistent with each other?
Yes, they were.
So you look out 3 or 4 minutes, look out again, 3 or 4 minutes, look out again. Is that?
Yes, that would be in line. Correct.
And at some point around 1:45 or 2 a.m., somewhere in there is when you leave Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Yes,
Do you recall who drove your wife's vehicle home that night?
I drove.
And who, if anyone else, was in the vehicle, and where were they seated within the vehicle when you left?
So we were driving Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel home. They were in the back seat of the vehicle, and my wife was in the passenger seat. I don't know who sat behind the passenger, who sat behind the driver, but they were in the back seat.
Your Honor, if at this time, with the court's permission, I'd like to publish for the jury for this witness exhibits 71, 72, and 73.
Okay.
Skip, if I could have exhibit 71 first. And so, Ms. McCabe, on the desk in front of you, there should be a laser pointer there. If you just click that button and point at the screen, if when I ask you to do so. First, just with reference to what's up on the screen as exhibit 71, do you recognize what that is, sir?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize?
34 Fairview.
And absence from the snowfall, obviously, is essentially what the house looked like on that early morning of January 29th.
Yes, that's correct.
And if you could, with relation to the window first, and then the storm door that you were talking about, that you were looking out from the house, if you, using the laser pointer, show the jury where that is.
Is that working? That would be the window. That'd be the storm door.
And with respect to the first placement, the first time that you look out and see the dark SUV in front of the house, is that visible in this photograph?
Wait, can you repeat that? Sorry.
First time that you look out and you see the dark SUV in front of the house, is that position, is that visible in this photograph?
I'd probably catch the very back end because there was a Jeep parked right here, so it'd be right there.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit 72. Again, sir, you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yep.
It's a photograph of the residence of 34 Fairview, is that correct?
Yes.
If you could, using that laser pointer, could you show the jury or demonstrate to the jury where that vehicle was the first time that you saw it?
Say right about here, in this general area.
The second positioning that you were talking about, is that visible in this photograph?
No, it'd be further up the road.
So Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit 73. Again, you recognize what's depicted now in exhibit 73?
Yes, I do.
And that secondary position that you observed the vehicle in is visible in this photograph.
Yes, it is.
So if you could, sir, just direct the jury's attention where about that.
About in this general area right here.
And the third positioning that you saw the vehicle in, can you describe where that was?
Yep, it'd be further up the road. I'd say, give or take, right there.
Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. You can take that. And so, sir, you leave the residence of 34 Fairview. Do you recall, as far as the weather was concerned, what was the weather? What, if anything, had changed between the times that you had looked out and the time that you came out to go home?
The snow was starting to accumulate.
So the storm was starting to pick up a bit. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And when you came out of the house, the vehicle was in the driveway, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And again, if you could, you're driving. Who else is in the car, and where are they in the car?
I'm in the driver's seat. My wife is in the passenger seat, and Julie and Sarah are in the seats directly behind us.
Do you recall who was seated where?
I don't recall who was in what seat.
And you back out of the driveway, and then you go. Do you recall where you were going or who you were dropping off first?
Yes, I back out of the driveway and proceed heading up towards Chapman Street.
And so, with the passenger side of the wife's vehicle, would that be facing closest to 34 Fairview at the time that you're driving away from it?
Yes, that's correct.
And your testimony as far as the storm picking up a little bit, do you recall anything did you have to clear off the car, windshield wipers on, or anything like that in reference to the weather?
Yes, I brushed the car off. I had to wipe the car off with my hand and clean off the windows before I pulled out of the driveway. And then obviously setting the windshield wipers as I was driving away.
Now, that area over where the secondary position that you observed that dark SUV in over by the flagpole, do you recall any sort of like street lighting or anything, ambient overhead lighting in that area?
I don't recall it, no.
As you're driving away from the house, do you recall whether or not was there any conversation or music playing or anything like that in the car as you're driving away?
Yeah, it was chitter chatter. You know, my wife was turned towards me, like turned in, talking to the girls behind me. I know at one point somebody was joking about, I don't know, peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something. Something about bread. I forget what it was. And then I drove up the street.
And as you were driving up the street and away from the residents of Fairview, what, if anything, did you observe abnormal on the side of the road? Were you looking at the side of the road?
I was not. I was focusing on the snow coming down, the windshield wipers, and driving up the street.
And fair to say you didn't see anything in the yard or anything like that?
That's correct.
So you drove each of the two young ladies home, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
You know about what time it was that you got home yourself?
I got home, give or take, somewhere between after 2:10, 2:15-ish. I don't know the exact time, but somewhere in that vicinity.
And when you got home, each of your four daughters, including Allie, were they all home at that point?
The kids were home, correct.
And when you arrived in the house, you and your wife, where did you?
Well, first went in the kitchen. When we walked in, my wife proceeded upstairs before I did. I was in the kitchen for a few minutes and then went upstairs and went to bed.
And did your wife go to bed around the same time as you?
Yes, she might have already been laying in bed before I physically got in the bed, but yes.
And as far as when you fell asleep, was your wife still awake, or had she already fallen?
She was still awake. We were both awake. She actually wanted to watch a show, which I had no desire to watch, and said I was going to bed. We talked a little bit about my younger daughter, about she was trying out for a basketball team, so we talked a little bit about that, and then that was it. I went to bed.
Turning your attention to the morning of the 29th. Yes, the morning of the 29th. You woke up at some point, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what, if anything, do you recall? Or what woke you up that morning?
I woke up to screams in my bedroom.
Or may we approach this briefly?
Okay. So we will send you home. Please make sure you follow those 3 cautions. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. Tomorrow's a full day. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
All rise for the court, please.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Go to the stand for recess.
Hey there, thanks for stopping in. We hope you will join us again. We all look forward to next time. We get to talk about true crime. Clues. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule and the defense rests. Our true crime family is great. All types of topics we debate. Smash that like and ring that bell. Hit subscribe, you might as well.